Today, for Jacques Villeneuve, the Grand Prix of Canada is the race he most wants to win. And he is not only the toast of this city, he is the toast of this province and the toast of this nation. As we are live on Father's Day 1997 here on Ile Notre-Dame, the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, we are just off downtown Montreal. Great day for racing, temperature about 22 degrees, clear skies. Warm sunshine. Last year they had more than 100,000 race day. They will easily smash that here this afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brian Williams. For the first time in 14 years, my regular partner Jackie Stewart is not with me. He is now a Formula One owner. You'll see him racing today, or his drivers racing today, Barrichello and Magnussen. We are thrilled to have with us a veteran BBC commentator, a veteran Formula One driver, Dr. Jonathan Palmer. Jonathan, welcome to Canada. Welcome to CBC.
Thank you very much indeed, Brian. I was first here back in 1985 driving with the German Zaxby team, and so it's been 12 years before I've been back here with CBC. But of course, in between that, there were 6 Grand Prix, 6 seasons of Grand Prix, and some 5 seasons of commentating.
Well, you talk about, you've been here for many years. This is my 14th year. I have never seen the excitement and intensity that exists here, not only today, but all week.
Well, of course, the fantastic thing is that we've got the home driver, Jacques Villeneuve, as the championship leader. His second season of Formula One, driving spectacularly, and that has brought the crowds out, as it always does, in absolute floods.
Now, Villeneuve is the big story. Schumacher's a big story. He has the pole position this afternoon. To me, and we talked about this morning, an even bigger story is what went on at qualifying yesterday, the balance.
Absolutely. The balance has changed, and this is the great thing, because up until this race, the first 6 Grand Prix of the season, it's been a Williams in pole position, either Villeneuve or Franson, but that's all changed with Schumacher just by the tiniest of margins taking the pole, and this is a good indicator of the fact that we're going to have a very tight race here today. The circuit characteristics lend itself towards that. There are no really fast turns here. There aren't too many medium speed. It's all about braking, small direction changes and accelerating out, and that's closing up the field, and that means excellent close racing for us.
You talk about close racing, 9 drivers within 1 second of the pole sitter Michael Schumacher yesterday. The third member of our broadcast crew has driven in more than 150 Formula One races. He won 5 of them. He is no stranger to Montreal. We say good afternoon to John Watson.
Thank you, Brian. It's great to be back here in Montreal at the Gilles Villeneuve circuit. Place I know very well. In fact, in my last 3 Grand Prix, I got a 2nd, a 3rd, and a 6th, so I'm fairly happy. But this afternoon, 69 very tough laps. Tires have been the main feature of this afternoon's Grand Prix, and here in the pit for Jacques Villeneuve and Heinz-Harald Frentzen, there's going to be as much action. In fact, as Michael Schumacher has said, the Grand Prix may well be won in the pit lane. Part of the reason is that Goodyear are having to do a lot of work to guarantee their tires don't have a repeat of what we saw in Spain. Could it be that Bridgestone, who were very strong in Spain, can do one better and win their first Grand Prix? Now, if Bridgestone won, it would be the first time that a non-Goodyear tire car has won a Grand Prix, and that was back in 1991, when guess who won here? Nelson Piquet on the Benetton with those Pirelli tires. So, 69 laps. I'm going to be in the pit lane, bringing you all the news. There's going to be lots of it. So I look forward to the commentary. Brian Williams and Jonathan Palmer, John Watson with you in the pits.
I tell you what, John, there'll be lots of news today. There's been news here all week. Let me take you back to Thursday morning. We have some videotape. We're going to show you the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts. This is where they had a special news conference for Jacques Villeneuve. Television crews, writers, look at this, from all over the world. I have never seen anything like this. You'd think the Prime Minister was here. Anyhow, after the formal part of the news conference, I had a chance to sit down and talk with Jacques Villeneuve. Jacques, what about the pressure of coming to Montreal? I mean, the Prime Minister doesn't have news conferences this big. What does it do to you?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of pressure, but it's once a year, so there'll be a lot of interest because it's only once a year. If there was an F1 race every week in Canada, then nobody would care.
What about this track? You like this particular track, the actual setup?
It depends when. For qualifying, there's not much to it. It's braking and chicanes or hairpins. There's no high-speed turns, which gives you a big rush. But, you know, if you get pole, it doesn't matter what type of track. You still just enjoy it. For racing, I think it's great because you have good braking zones where you can overtake with long straight lines where you can get a toe. So I think where racing is concerned, that's the type of track that is pretty good.
Speaking of racing, you've won every race you've finished. Are you happy with the car, with the machinery this year?
Yeah, definitely. The car part of the car is the work I did with Jock Clear, my engineer, last year. Part of the evolution is what I needed as well. And so it makes it that much easier to trust in the car, to expect what it's going to do. So the confidence is pretty high because of that. Setup-wise as well, whatever track we go to, we change a small spring here or an anti-roll bar there, but the basic setup just remains the same because we're just close to its perfection.
Schumacher's your main competition, but the F1 circuit, Barrichello had a second-place finish for Jackie in Monaco. It seems to be more competitive this year, which you wanted to see for a while.
It is more competitive, and I think the tire war has helped that quite a lot. There's more grip in the tires this year, so it hides a little bit the problems of cars. So it's going to put everybody else closer to us, and that's good. I think the races are more interesting. Qualifying is amazing this year. Just the sheer speed you can get through the corners and the amount of braking you can apply is amazing, and it gives me a lot of pleasure.
You're getting a lot of pleasure. You're still having fun. You told me once when you were, I think it was in Vancouver before the IndyCar race, if it wasn't fun, I wouldn't do it. You still having a good time?
I'm having a good time, yes, definitely. This year anyway, the way things are going, the speed we get with the cars, yeah, it is fun. There's a few races, of course, that were disappointing, but that's what makes up a championship.
Tell me about the safety. For those people that tune in to watch one race a year, they don't understand Formula One. Narrower chassis, groove tires. What's the problem? Explain it for those that don't follow racing.
Well, it's done to go slower, basically. I believe, yeah, slower can be good, I guess, but the problem is with the narrower cars and mostly the grooved tires, we're going to rely more on the downforce than the actual mechanical grip, which is wrong for racing, because when you follow someone closely in a corner, you lose all your downforce, and you just end up, you have to slow 10, 15 Ks, and then you cannot be close enough to the other guy to overtake him under braking. So that's not going to help the racing, I reckon. The other thing is, when you don't have mechanical grip, as soon as you get sideways, you lose your downforce, and you can't catch the car. So you'll just see cars, drivers driving within the limit, just to make sure that you don't make a mistake, to make sure you preserve the tires as well, because the other problem is you won't know how much of the tire you've used, and if you've used too much of your tire, you're going to be disqualified.
Hey, so it won't be as exciting, basically. That's what
I don't think so. A lot of people say it will be more exciting because there'll be less grip, but 7 seconds a lap slower is very slow. It looks slow, and I don't think that's what you want out of Formula One. I don't think that's what you want out of the pinnacle of motor racing.
You've said before, fans love drivers, but they love drivers that take risk. Risk is part of the sport. Do you apply that when you're thinking of the safety changes?
Yeah, definitely. I think risk is part of the sport, and with the amount of money we make, I don't think we should complain too much where that is concerned. A lot of people take huge risks for sheer pleasure without getting any money out of it. Okay, in modern times, it's not politically correct to take risks, I guess, or to hurt yourself on live TV. But when you grow up and you take your snowmobile and you go like a maniac in between the woods, or you take your motocross and you just keep, crashing, or you first time you have your car and you go and you drive like an idiot on the highways, why do you do it? Purely because to find an edge and to push yourself and to feel stronger than the next guy. But soon that won't be allowed anymore in Formula One, so it just doesn't make sense to me.
You look relaxed. You had to go talk to Mosley. I understand it's not what you said, but how you said it that upset him. What about the jet lag? Will that affect you for Sunday?
Yes, it will, but the good thing is as soon as Bombardier heard I had to go there, they gave me the opportunity to use one of the jets, so it made the trip much easier. So that's going to be a help this weekend.
Welcome home to Canada.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That interview was taped on Thursday. There's a book, Villeneuve, My First Season in Formula One. It's a good one, co-written with Gerald Donaldson. There's a quote I love. Let me read it to you. This is from last year. Villeneuve says, "We arrived at the Montreal airport. When I fly to Canada and the wheels of the plane touch down on the runway, I always feel happy. I suppose it's something to do with returning to my roots." He's back to his roots indeed. And despite the fact he's not on the pole, he is without question the favorite here today. Jackie Stewart told me this morning there's no way that Villeneuve will not win here this afternoon. Up next, Dr. Jonathan Palmer with a very special feature. There's Villeneuve's car. We'll take you inside the cockpit with the good doctor.
of Canada on CBC. Brought to you by the Players Racing Team, proud supporter of motorsports in Canada for over 35 years. By Molson Dry, it's not just beer, it's dry. By Pontiac, built for drivers. And by Midas for new longer-lasting performance friction carbon metallic brake pads.
And with about 20 minutes to go until the start of the race, great day for racing. Welcome back live. There's our broadcast position, that little white booth on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. When Jacques Villeneuve goes to work, he says, I go to work like anyone else. I go to work in my office. Right now on this Sunday afternoon, let's take you inside Jacques Villeneuve's quote-unquote office. And once again, here is Dr. Jonathan Palmer.
Now, while most will be all too familiar with the outside appearance of Jacques Villeneuve's championship-leading Williams-Renault FW19, few will have seen the cockpit. So let's take a closer look. First of all, the driver's seat is moulded to his exact body shape. He must be located precisely in the car with the great G-forces. The steering wheel is removable to help get in and out easily, and has some fascinating switches and levers. The left-hand lever here operates the clutch. To disengage it, Jacques pulls his left-hand fingers towards him, and at the start of the race, he simply lets go, engaging drive. He then changes up and down the gearbox using this right-hand lever. He pushes it away from him to change up through the 6-speed gearbox, and then to change down, pulls the lever towards him. On the front of the steering wheel, we have a number of buttons. D is for recording data. The N there is for operating neutral when the driver's changed down to first gear. If the throttle should jam, he pushes the cut button there, and then to speak to his pit crew on the radio, he pushes the R radio button. Now then, looking at the dashboard itself, there's a very sparse amount of information. First of all, he has a display which can be selected to operate a number of parameters, such as water temperature, oil temperature, but Jacques actually will race with this switch in the lap time mode. He will be looking at his lap time, and indeed a breakdown of his lap time around the lap virtually all the time. The left-hand green number there indicates the gear that he's in. Because he hasn't got a gear lever which will show him the position, he has to look, if he needs to, which is probably rare, at the display, the digital display, to tell him what gear he's in. In terms of switches, the ignition switch is here. You turn it down to position 1 to turn the ignition on. Position 2 operates the fuel pumps as well, and that's how the engine will run throughout the Grand Prix. And then on the left of that is the transmission isolate switch. When it's up in the ISO position, that means he can't engage the drive, and so he has to push it to run before he leaves the pits. And then lower down we have various other sundry switches that are not too important. And on the left-hand side, the light button. We're not going to need that here today, I'm quite sure. And this bronze knob operates the brake balance control. He can vary how much braking is done by the front wheels or the back wheels. Down in the depths of the cockpit there, he has his pedals. No clutch here, of course. It's operated by the steering wheel lever. So the left-hand pedal operates the brakes, and he uses his left foot on that. The right-hand pedal is for the throttle. Safety is all important, of course, with these cars, and safety is helped by a number of things. The immense strength, of course, of the cockpit, these wide seat belts that are pinned absolutely tight by the mechanics before the driver gets in or before the driver leaves the pit. There's the lap strap here, the shoulder straps, and the crutch straps. And then he has a lot of cushioning for his head. The helmet now, of course, is restrained on the side by these cushioned side impact structures, and also with the absorbent foam behind his head. And then if should there be a rollover incident with the car, the driver's head must be below a line from this little hump here up to the top of the roll bar to make sure that his head is clear of anything on the ground. And finally, in the event of fire, there's the switch that is operating for the fire extinguishers. Now, of course, all of these safety devices are tremendously important in certain situations, of which Jacques will be familiar from time to time. But that is not now. You can bet your life that all of these things are far from his mind, which is totally dominated by the need to try and win this race.
Thank you, Jonathan. Standing in the way of victory this afternoon for Jacques Villeneuve is the pole sitter, two-time world champion Michael Schumacher from Germany, driving, of course, for Ferrari. Now, in conversation with John Watson, we find out more about the multifaceted personality of this talented German racer.
I live much more in the present than in the past. Probably in a couple of years, 10, 20 years later, I'm going to sit in my sofa and thinking, well, it wasn't too bad to achieve maybe so many victories or pole positions, but right now I don't care. It is very tough to do and do all your personal training, do all the testing, and then have to wake up middle in the night and feed a little one and so on. Corinne most of the time wakes up during the night, and then maybe like in the morning, 8 o'clock, when she's hungry again, I get up then and look after her while my wife then continues sleeping. So we split the work, but she takes most of it during the night, because I did at the beginning. I woke up during the night and I feeded her, and after 3 days I was completely destroyed. I was so tired, and I said, I have to do my work here, and this altogether, it just can't work for a long time. He impresses me and obviously other people. He's so young, and that's why I feel he's even more special than what I did. I mean, he hasn't been prepared in the way compared to what I had been. The way he came in, the way he handles the team, it's just a great work. He did out of 6 races, he did 1 mistake himself, which is really not too much. Done 1 finish and finished this in the podium on 3rd position. I think that's great, yeah. There's still work to do. This circuit suits us. It's a stop-and-go circuit. Aerodynamic efficiency is not paying out that much compared to circuits like Barcelona or coming circuits, Magny-Cours or Silverstone. Those are the circuits where we're going to struggle. I hope that all the pieces we're going to produce will be ready and show up as much as we think. Then we should be more competitive, but it will still be a struggle on those kind of circuits to be like now, doing pole positions or winning races. To be honest, I lost in the last sector, which was the hairpin in particular. I knew I was faster in sector 1 and 2, because I see that on my dashboard. And because of this, I didn't want to waste that time. I was a little bit conservative in braking to the hairpin, which cost me about 2 tenths. So I had to make it up again into the last corner, which then probably looked a little bit spectacular. Overall, it worked out, but it is obviously very satisfying to do such a job in the very last minute and then being in front of the other one. I have loads of respect. I know he's tough, so he knows about me, and the most important point is that we both know we're not stupid. I mean, we race to the maximum, but you leave each one room to survive, and you don't want to kill anyone. And we're both going to push it up to the maximum and see who wins.
One of the greats, 2-time world champion Michael Schumacher from Germany. I talked about fever. This is the front page, not the sports section, the whole paper, Montreal Gazette today, an article by Jack Todd. It is Grand Prix fever. This is quite simply the most anticipated Canadian Grand Prix in history. Stay with us. Up next, we return live to Montreal, the Players Grand Prix for 1997, and we'll run down that starting grid.
Grand Prix of Canada on CBC. Brought to you by Castrol GTX. Drive hard. By Gillette. New Gillette Series Clear Stick Antiperspirant. Get the clear advantage. And by Speed 2. Have you experienced rush hour yet?
Back live in Montreal, Dr. Jonathan Palmer said yesterday, great conditions for racing. I remember when you raced here in the rain in 1989, the crowd was nowhere near what it is this afternoon, but in past years it's been hot and it's been very humid. Ideal conditions for driving as it's cool and it's tough inside that cockpit when it's very hot outside.
Absolutely. It's going to be 1 hour, 34 minutes, 35 minutes, I would think, of pounding around here in these 750 horsepower machines. And you really do want it cool. You want dry conditions. You want a nice clear sun, because you see that when you're in the cars as well. But certainly just to take the edge off the temperature really is important.
We're going to run down the grid in just a minute. Before we do, we had that feature, the interview, John Watson, with Michael Schumacher.
in speaking with Schumacher, he has genuine respect for Jacques Villeneuve, and to me that's important. Talk about it from a driver's perspective.
Well, Schumacher, of course, is the classic racer, and when Jacques Villeneuve went around the outside of Schumacher at the Portuguese Grand Prix last year, that was the kind of manoeuvre that gave Schumacher such phenomenal respect. And see, Damon Hill didn't actually ever complete a manoeuvre quite like that, and I think that's a difference.
All right, Schumacher and Villeneuve will start at the front of the pack this afternoon. Only 22 cars. I can remember back years ago when they had to have pre-qualifying. Let's run down the grid, Jonathan. Michael Schumacher on the front row, Villeneuve alongside him.
Yes, as we said before, it's the first time for Schumacher on pole position this year. That's significant. He's going to have a harder time, I think, in the race than he had in qualifying, but Villeneuve, sure, he's disappointed. He would have loved to have been on pole position here. Without any doubt, it is really important, and now it's going to come down to the start in a major way.
Now on to row number 2. Big surprise is Rubens Barrichello driving for our friend Jackie Stewart.
Quite frankly, I think Barrichello's performance is the performance of qualifying, even better than Michael Schumacher's. It's an extraordinary result. Barrichello was 5th on the grid at Argentina. He was on pole position a few years ago in damp conditions, but a great start there for the Stewart team. Frentzen, a bit disappointing there. He's been in the shadow of Villeneuve, but after all, it is still his first year at Williams, and a lot of pressure.
Now, how about row 3? I keep hearing that David Coulthard loves the start of a race. Some drivers are nervous. He says he's most relaxed, and he's quick off the start.
Well, you're hearing correctly, because I think Coulthard could well make up some places off the start here. He's done so many times before. He's got a new powerful engine in that car. Fisichella, mind you, great qualifying performance, but he may miss out because he doesn't start that well.
Let's go to row number 4. And on row 4, Ralf Schumacher with Jordan Peugeot. Alesi's won here in the past. A lot of people saying pay attention to Alesi this afternoon.
Indeed, Alesi was my teammate in fact in Tyrrell originally. Of course, he won, and he's aggressive. He's being pressured by Wirtz now, but Ralf Schumacher could get the jump on Fisichella ahead, so we must watch for that.
Let's continue on as we move now to row number 5. Mika Hakkinen driving for McLaren. It is pronounced Panis. He drives for Alain Prost. I said, is it Panis, Olivier, or Panis, or Panis? He said, it is pronounced Panis. Let's go to row number 6 as we run down the grid. 22 cars this afternoon. Wirtz is replacing Gerhard Berger. Berger home with a sinus infection in Austria. Eddie Irvine driving the number 2 Ferrari. He's been remarkably consistent this year. Johnny Herbert with the Sauber Petronas team. Verstappen driving for Ken Tyrrell. On to row number 8 as we're awaiting the cars going around on their warm-up lap. The defending world champion Damon Hill has finished only one race this year. Dinez drives for Arrows, his teammate, both on row 8. On row 9, Salo, the other Tyrrell driver. Rumors are he could go to Ferrari. Morbidelli drives for Sauber. Row number 10 we see this afternoon. Nakano in the second Alain Prost car. Trulli driving for Minardi. Had some trouble in practice yesterday. Jackie Stewart's other driver, Jan Magnussen, and Katayama in the 22nd and final car here this afternoon. Record crowds on hand. We've talked about the crowds last year. Last year they had a crowd in excess of 100,000 on race day. They're expecting to have even more than that here this afternoon. The crowds not released, or I haven't seen any figures, Jonathan, from yesterday, but it looked to be certainly near capacity here yesterday. And we take a look at the world driving standings. Villeneuve with a 3-point lead over Michael Schumacher, so Schumacher could, well, he could move into first place here this afternoon.
It's certainly good. The championship is close. I don't think he's going to do it in the course of the year because the Ferrari is just not as good as the Williams. Make no mistake, it's Schumacher's pure, amazing talent that's hauling that car around. But this is a car, if not the driver. That's the Prost car, the Prost with its Mugen Honda engine. That's not actually the key man, Panis, his own car, but Nakano. But the big thing about the Prost cars is that they run on Bridgestone tyres, and they are doing well. Goodyear have had Formula One their own way for a long time. Bridgestone have come in for the first time. We've got a tyre war on our hands, and it looks like it's going to come to an absolute head here at Montreal. We could be seeing our first Bridgestone win today. It could be Barrichello because the Stewart team run Bridgestones, or, of course, more likely, I think, from Olivier Panis in that Prost car. He's had a second in Spain. He had a third place also earlier in the year in Brazil. And these are the conditions that I think Panis is really looking forward to. He's disappointed, it has to be said, in qualifying, and he's right. He's well, relatively back there in 10th place.
We saw, Jonathan, some of the former winners here. We should point out that Blackjack Rabbit, who won the first ever Canadian Grand Prix back in 1967, was honored here on Friday. Look at Michael Schumacher, who will start from the pole. Alongside will be Jacques Villeneuve. By the way, Schumacher, I talked about being a two-time world champion. The last Ferrari driver to win the World Driving Championship was Jody Scheckter in 1979. He beat Gilles Villeneuve by 4 points, and now the cars beginning to move away
There will be one lap to warm up the tires, and then they will reform, and this 69-lap race should be underway. Take us around, Jonathan.
Right, this is turn 2 there, that right-hand corner. That's 80 kilometers per hour, right down to first gear for that. This is was when the cars are warming up their tires, warming up the brakes, and that's probably even more important around here. Now then through, we're looking above that, coming out of their turn 2 into turn 3, braking right down there. It'll be from 230 k's down to 115 in second gear. Out of that, now this right-hand kink they're going through is absolutely flat out at 260 kilometers per hour until they come to the left-hander, back down to second, and then second gear and some 85 kilometers per hour, up then to another 290. This is what this circuit's all about. It's about low corners and accelerating hard coming up. But let's just have a think about what we're going to be seeing in another 40 seconds or so time. These cars are going to be lined up on the grid. They're going to be keeping their motors running. That's one of the functions of this sort of lap, to make sure that everybody, as far as one can, has their engines running. And when they get to that grid, they're going to have to keep exactly still because they have position sensors. If anybody jumps the start, the automatic sensors will detect that. But let's think what's going to be critical here at this start. It's going to be critical between Schumacher and Villeneuve. Villeneuve will be absolutely determined to try and get ahead of Schumacher. Schumacher there is going to want to make best use of his pole position nevertheless. But behind that, I think we may see Barrichello getting swamped. That's the Tyrrell there, one of the Tyrrells. There's Barrichello. Barrichello might get swamped because behind him are two hard starters of David Coulthard and also Ralf Schumacher. Both those two make good starts, so let's look for that. And I think again we may see Schumacher, Ralf Schumacher, get ahead of his teammate Fisichella. Fisichella is 6th, but the really crucial one is up front because Villeneuve is going to have to work very, very hard to get by that Ferrari because the Ferrari is the slower car in a straight line. And if Schumacher will want to get ahead, because Schumacher will have no chance of getting by Jacques Villeneuve. If Villeneuve it is who gets away first. Look at the black blinds there where they laid down the rubber previously.
Michael Schumacher on the left. He has the pole position. To his right, Jacques Villeneuve. The cars coming now, reforming. We'll await the green lights and we'll be underway. Watch out for David Coulthard and the silver-colored McLaren. He's a notoriously fast starter. Schumacher on the right, Villeneuve on the left.
And we're waiting for the lights to first come on and then go off. Of course, nowadays there is not a green light. It's simply when all the red lights go off. They're building the engine revs up to some 16,000 revs probably, and that'll really crescendo once we see those red lights come on.
We are underway in Montreal. Schumacher goes first, followed by Villeneuve. Now the left 90-degree turn into the hairpin. The pole sitter Michael Schumacher has the lead, and he is followed by Jacques Villeneuve.
Well, there's a spinning Eddie Irvine there, the Ferrari with some wing come off somebody else's car, but a great start from Michael Schumacher there. Schumacher getting ahead, a poor start from Frentzen there. Jacques Villeneuve in second place, behind that in third. It is indeed. And there we have one of the Stewart cars. That's Magnussen. That's Jan Magnussen there, and there's Eddie Irvine. Eddie Irvine's had a miserable weekend. He qualified down in 12th place. He was looking for a good race to try and pull it back, albeit a slow start, and that's the end of that now.
Michael Schumacher followed by Villeneuve. The yellow car is Giancarlo Fisichella, who had a great start, starting from 6th, and he is now running 3rd as they come down to the east end of Ile Notre Dame. It'll be interesting to see. It appears the debris has been cleared at the west end of the track where Eddie Irvine and the number 2 Ferrari went off.
Yes, I don't think there's any chance of the race being stopped for that, but a great start there from Fisichella. He's not made particularly good starts. That provoked me to think that maybe Ralf Schumacher, his teammate, might get ahead. Fisichella is a real star. Now let's have a look at this incident. Look, we've got Schumacher out in front already, but look further back. There is, it looks on the back of a Häkkinen's wing by the look of it. Is it gone there? I think that may have been the black wing from Mika Häkkinen, so we could see him coming into the pits if that's the case. For him, Eddie Irvine, what a miserable end of the weekend. But look at the lead that Schumacher's got. Schumacher is really piling on the pressure there. Jacques Villeneuve dropping back, and that makes me think already about relative strategy, because I would have expected Villeneuve to be right up right up behind Michael Schumacher at the moment, and in fact he's dropping back a little.
Jonathan, I'll tell you a great story. As into the pits comes one of the Ligier. We talk about good stories, not only Fisichella, but how about Alesi, who has moved up into 4th place? That is Olivier Panis, and this will hurt the pros team because Panis have been very strong here both Thursday and Friday.
Yeah, this is a major blow. This is a very significant event of the race. Seeing Olivier Panis in there for the pits. He's coming out of the pits now. That was indeed Häkkinen. He lost his rear wing when Panis, perhaps it was, that touched him. Irvine got involved. All of that happened at that first corner. And for Panis, that's a great blow in the pros team because they could have well have won this race. We believe the Bridgestone tyres may be better than the Goodyears on this circuit. We don't know yet. And frankly, because Panis is out now effectively of the running, certainly for the lead, we may never know.
And coming down to complete lap 2, there's Michael Schumacher, followed by Villeneuve, Fisichella, Alesi, Coulthard, Frentzen, Ralf Schumacher, and Barrichello. Barrichello running very well. This is spun out, and it's one of the Williams cars. It is Villeneuve. Villeneuve is out of this race.
And I think you can see the marks there where Villeneuve has come in now. He was probably on his own. Now, we may need to see a replay of this. What a massive blow. He can't believe it. He's shaking his head. The body language says, this was my fault. I cannot believe it. Or does it say that somebody touched him? It may be, but I wouldn't have thought Fisichella was close enough. Did he have a go at Ralf and Michael Schumacher coming in there? But he was too far away, surely. I would have thought this incident was Jacques Villeneuve on his own, and to have that kind of end at the end of lap 1, this is absolute, end of lap 2 rather, absolutely devastating. Let's have a look. Have we got it here? We're on board with him. This is into the chicane. There's Schumacher ahead. Villeneuve brakes from 300. He turns in, and he's spun it. He's spun it on his own, and he's gone into that wall pretty hard. That, I have to say, is quite extraordinary. Villeneuve's made, there is an external view of it. He spins it, he loses the back end on the right-hander. There is Fisichella, he's well back. Jacques Villeneuve was on his own. Unless car failure played a part, and I think it's exceedingly unlikely, that was an absolutely numbing mistake by Jacques Villeneuve on the second lap of his home circuit Grand Prix.
And you talk about numbing. A silence has fallen over this huge crowd in Montreal. Michael Schumacher now beginning to open it up. Running second, there is Giancarlo Fisichella, followed by Alesi, David Coulthard, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and Ralf Schumacher is 6th. Jacques Villeneuve, and it appears, as Jonathan Palmer pointed out, to be driver error unless there was a mechanical malfunction on that car. Villeneuve hitting the wall as he was about to complete lap number 2. And Jonathan, that is exactly where David Coulthard wrapped the wall here on Friday.
And of course, Alexander Wirtz deputizing for Gerhard Berger in the Benetton yesterday. And in fact, Wirtz, to be fair to him, lost it because Mika Salo spun and put debris across the track, which then Wirtz encountered and went straight off. But let's just think for a second fleetingly about championships. Michael Schumacher, 27 points. Jacques Villeneuve is 30. We know Jacques Villeneuve is not going to get more points from this race, so we could yet see Schumacher. In fact, Schumacher is likely, I would say, to take the championship lead after this. But look there how hard we've got Ralf Schumacher pushing hard there on Heinz-Harald Frentzen in 5th place. Williams' hopes now relying on this man, and that's before the race. Patrick Head was saying to me that their reliability record has not been as good as they would have liked. They really want to get 2 cars to the finish, and well, that's the end of that, that's for sure.
Down through the start-finish area, Heinz-Harald Frentzen pursued by Ralf Schumacher. There goes Michael Schumacher, followed by Fisichella, Alesi, Coulthard, Frentzen, and his brother Ralf. Michael Schumacher around the hairpin at the west end of Ile Notre Dame. Mika Häkkinen is out of this race for McLaren. And the big story, though, Jacques Villeneuve, it appears to be, and I'm quoting Dr. Jonathan Palmer here, we don't know if something happened in the car, but it appeared to be simply driver error as Villeneuve, about to complete lap 2, smacked into the wall. Right now, we go down to the pits, and John Watson.
Thank you, Brian. Eddie Irvine, what happened in the first corner?
Someone's nose came off. I don't know whose it was, as I was going around the outside, and it just shot out in front of me, and I had nowhere to go. It just went straight over the top, and it flicked me round, and that was it, all over.
Innocent victim once again?
Well, who knows?
Okay, Eddie. Sad retirement, first corner. Very, very busy indeed with Panis and Häkkinen involved. We don't know who was the instigator of the incident, but Eddie Irvine clearly was the victim. Brian.
All right, John, Eddie Irvine was second in Argentina. His father, Eddie Sr., lived in Toronto from 1959 to 62. Used to work for Canadian Tire. Used to go up and watch the racing at Mosport. He still has an uncle in Markham, Ontario, and an aunt in Coldwater, Ontario. Heinz Harald Frentzen pursued by Ralf Schumacher as they come down. And here's Frentzen. Now, right here is where Villeneuve smacked the wall and knocked himself out of this race.
And I have to say, that was the most extraordinary event. We cannot overemphasize what a devastating, extraordinary event that was for Jacques Villeneuve. He just will not believe it. We could see him shaking his head. He had his head in his hands. And whilst there is a slim chance it could have been a mechanical failure or maybe a puncture from the back of that Williams, I think it's probably unlikely. I think maybe Jacques just turned in a little too quickly, and as a result of that, the back end came round. But look at there, Fisichella pushing hard.
And I'll tell you, I mentioned it earlier, I spent some time with Jackie Stewart this morning. I said, Jackie, how do you see this race unfolding? He said, well, I like Barrichello, who's my #1 driver, but he said, I don't think there's any way in the world, barring a catastrophe, that Villeneuve would not win here this afternoon. We've seen the catastrophe. Jonathan Palmer and John Watson. There's Heinz Harald Frentzen. I'm Brian Williams. Welcome back to Montreal. Frentzen is the only Williams Renault running out of this race before he completed his second lap, Jacques Villeneuve. And while away, we've had some trouble. Katayama driving for Minardi, smacking a wall on the north side of the island, but nothing serious.
No, but that has been enough to bring the safety car out. Now, this is going to mean that the field are going to have to close up behind the safety car. That's going to be happening in due course, and when everybody's behind the safety car will, there's that safety car. There they're queuing up behind. That's Michael Schumacher behind that Fisichella, and then we've got a Lacey Coulthard. But what's happened while we've been away is that Ralf Schumacher's got ahead of Heinz Harald Frentzen. They're the Williams crew. Now this will be a time to bring somebody in normally, but you know it's too early to bring anybody in for fuel. So if the Williams crew are getting ready, it's maybe because they think Frentzen's got a problem. Maybe Frentzen slipped back because he's got a tyre problem. Now, had there been any other car than Schumacher, who was the first car behind the safety car, he'd be waved by now. And we're going to see the drivers follow round behind for probably what's going to be a couple of laps while they remove that Minardi. We've seen Minardis going off in every session for some reason, whether it's been Jarno Trulli, Katayama's teammate, or Katayama. Katayama, it has to be said, has a bit of a reputation for being somebody who goes off. And but what we get here, we're closing up the race. It's not a bad thing. Schumacher was actually being caught by Fisichella, and that's a benefit for our motor race.
Jonathan, let me ask you, as we take a look at the standings right now, they've completed 7 of 69 laps. What is the pit strategy this afternoon? You expect a 2-stop race?
Yeah, there's that car of Katayama's. The truck, they're going to pick it up. That's not going to take very long. They're going to just hoik the whole thing up. But yeah, Brian, let's come on to the strategy. This is a 200-mile race. There is no obligation on teams to come in the pits for fuel and tyres. But if anybody started this race with enough fuel to get to the whole end, look, we must watch this. This is Villeneuve's mistake. This is the end of lap 2. 300 kilometers per hour, turning it down to second gear. He clips the curve, runs a little bit wide, the back comes round, and round it, the whole thing goes. I have to say that looking at it for a second time really now, it does seem extraordinary that the back of that car came round like that. You know, Villeneuve bangs his head. And, you know, to me, that's the look of someone who knows that they've made a mistake. He cannot believe it, but he's made a mistake.
And as the cars follow the safety car around here in Montreal, a chance for us to take a commercial break. You're watching live coverage of the 1997 Players Grand Prix of Canada from Montreal. Back live in Montreal, the full course yellow still in effect. The safety car is out. The Minardi of Katayama hitting the wall. Here is a replay of the start. Schumacher got away cleanly.
And now we're looking at it from Alesi's car. Let's have a look there. That's Alesi behind Fisichella. Fisichella goes to that great start. This is really superb stuff. Alesi follows him right through there. So Alesi comes in there, and Alesi goes up the inside of Fisichella. We know Fisichella makes the place. Watch him around the outside. There he is. That's Fisichella. Little twitch from Alesi. Great stuff. This really is.
Magnificent camera work here in Montreal. We're under a full course yellow, if you will. The safety car is out. Jacques Villeneuve is out of this race. That's not why the safety car is out. John Watson, I understand you're in the Williams pits. What's the word? What's the atmosphere down there?
Well, Jacques has just returned to the back of the pits. There's been a pandemonium down here. The team want to just quickly debrief him. He's going to come out and talk to us, tell us what went wrong, the mystery of why he lost control of his Williams at the end of the second lap. Still nobody can tell us. Jack is now in the process of trying to say it was down to me.
They've now completed 9 laps, and on lap 10, racing again in Montreal, Michael Schumacher now leading Fisichella by about 1.4 seconds. And it's very interesting, Jonathan, you told me before the race today, the stories in qualifying yesterday were not Schumacher and Jacques Villeneuve, but you thought Barrichello and Fisichella, who's running in second place.
Absolutely interesting, too, that Barrichello has done, as we suspected, slipped right down the order. He got truly swamped at that start, down to 8th place now. But these Jordans are absolutely flying, and Fisichella has been a revelation this year. There was a lot of hype about Ralf Schumacher being Michael's brother, and frankly, he's lived up to it. But Fisichella's probably done even better. And for Fisichella to be running not just in second place, but so close. And let's not forget that prior to the safety car coming out, Fisichella had closed the gap to Michael Schumacher. He was taking 0.3 of a second off him. Fisichella is driving extraordinarily well. There's Alesi. Alesi in third, Coulthard fourth, Ralf Schumacher in 5th place, and Fredson in 6th. This is a bad weekend for Williams at the moment.
Down through the start-finish area comes the Ferrari of Michael Schumacher. The yellow car running second is 24-year-old Giancarlo Fisichella, and into the pits comes Heinz Harald Frentzen. This has not been a great day for Williams.
Look at the blisters. The left rear tyre is blistered. Those 2 lines around there. This is what the teams were fearing, blistering of those tyres. And this is the first sign of doing something about it. Goodyear have shaved the tread. Look, there's a clean tyre. No lines around it. That's very interesting indeed, but it really shouldn't have happened. The teams thought they prepared the tyres properly. Goodyear had actually gone to the trouble of shaving some rubber off because it was recognised that the depth of rubber was too deep, and too deep rubber actually causes overheating too. We should look for telltale signs of blisters with other teams too. Can't see anything just there. So Goodyear had shaved these tyres. They've made the tread compound, the tread depth thinner. The teams had cycled the tyres, and that means going out in a practice session, heating them up, cooling them down, and doing it the next day, and cycling the tyre. There's another blister. That is on Ralf Schumacher. Look at the left front on Ralf Schumacher. Now the blisters on the fronts will tend to have a less of an impact. Ralf Schumacher on the Bridgestone car, the Goodyear car. Look at the inside of his left front tyre. That black line you see going around is a succession of little blisters, maybe big blisters, but the man who should keep them clean. You need skill, you need judgment, finesse, not to blister your tyres. You need to have prepared your tyres properly and not slide the car. And I wonder if Frentzen, in his efforts earlier on to hold back Ralf Schumacher, was actually sliding that Williams too much, putting the power down too much, provoking a bit of wheel spin, because it's that causes the blisters. And in case you wonder what blisters are, it is areas of the tyre tread rubber that is overheated, and you get little explosions. It overheats and bubbles up, basically. The rubber comes off on the outside, and the whole tyre surface starts to break down, and that means massively reduced grip. The car will be sliding around tremendously. You can get away with them to an extent on the front if they're small. On the back, you can't.
There is Fisichella in the yellow car, followed by Alesi, Coulthard, Ralf Schumacher, and Wirtz, who's replacing Gerhard Berger, Alexander Wirtz. And Wirtz, we mentioned, had a bit of a rough time hitting the wall here in qualifying, but Wirtz, prior to that, was driving extremely well. And Wirtz right now running in 6th place for Benetton. The Benettons having a big day, running 3rd and 6th. And of course, Eddie Jordan with Fisichella 2nd and Ralf Schumacher 5th is having an outstanding day.
Yes, and the Benetton team have been very impressed by Alexander Wirtz. His first ever Grand Prix. He's Benetton's test driver. Been drafted in because of the problems, and that looks like an overtaker there. That's one of the Jordan. No, it's one of the Tyrrells. It's a big Tyrrell scrap going on there. That is Jos Verstappen in front. It's behind that, and he's actually managed to get by Rubens Barrichello in the Stewart.
Verstappen goes ahead of Barrichello. Barrichello drops to 8th, and Verstappen is now 7th after a gutsy pass just about where Jacques Villeneuve had trouble and smacked the wall. It's still Michael Schumacher, now by a 2.5 seconds over Giancarlo Fisichella. You're watching live coverage of the 1997 Players Grand Prix of Canada. Montreal, there is that amazing pass.
Yeah, there we have Jos Verstappen in the Tyrrell on the inside, coming past there. Rubens Barrichello losing out heavily at the moment. A really gutsy drive there from Jos Verstappen up to 7th place. This is the most competitive a Tyrrell car has been so far. But why, we have to ask, why is our star of qualifying, Rubens Barrichello, who qualified so superbly in the Stewart Ford in 3rd place, slipping back? He's now back to 8th place. But up ahead, there is real excitement because Fisichella is actually closing on Michael Schumacher, and he's now within 1.4 seconds after 14 laps. And Schumacher's responded by setting another fastest lap, and they're through there. That is, we have a challenge from Mika Salo to Rubens Barrichello there. That's the Tyrrell of Mika Salo behind Barrichello, and that's a Jordan. That is a Jordan car.
So that will be either Fisichella or Ralf Schumacher. It is Ralf Schumacher who's off just beyond the start-finish line, and he went off and went off hard. He's not injured. He's out of the car, but hard into the tires. Ralf Schumacher was running in 5th place for Eddie Jordan. So it's becoming a war of attrition here this afternoon. Eddie Irvine out of the race right after the start. Jacques Villeneuve out of the race. Let's have one more look.
There he is on the far picture. Look, he gets on the grass. Now, that is extraordinary. Going off on the right-hand side. An enormous accident there. Now, I wonder if, for some reason, Schumacher had a brake failure. I'm just hypothesizing here. Why else would you drive off the right-hand side of the circuit and against the Armco barrier? One scenario in which you might is if you had a brake failure and you knew you were going to have an accident, but you wanted to run the car in against the wall all the way down. But what a great job the safety mechanisms do here. He would have been doing 180 miles an hour, 285 kilometers per hour at that point, and whatever, he slowed down little. But there's his brother, Michael Schumacher, out in front, and he's responded to the pressure from Fisichella in the second Jordan. The other thing we may wonder about Ralf Schumacher, was it anything to do with that tyre? We knew he had some blisters on that left front. I would think unlikely. We'd like to hear the story there, because that was an odd accident. It was to expected normally when somebody goes off at that point that you lose it under braking and spin and half maybe going backwards, but to literally drive to the right on the approach was very odd indeed.
You see the gap now. Alexei running third, more than 3 seconds behind the leader, Michael Schumacher, the two-time world champion from Germany, driving for Ferrari.
Now, they're on their 16th lap, so let's just have a think about strategy, because this is important. We said, yes, hypothetically, they could do the whole race on one set of tyres and one tank of fuel. In fact, the fuel tanks aren't big enough. They have two options, really. One is to make one stop at about lap 34, 35, 36, basically mid-distance of this 69-lap race for a set of tyres and another 110 litres of fuel. The other is to divide the race into three, and therefore, if anybody does that, we're going to be seeing the first few stops around about lap 23, lap 22, somewhere between lap 22 and about lap 27. Now, I think we're going to see a lot of people going for a two-stop strategy. So first stop round about lap 23, second stop round about lap 46. We've still got this scrap going on. What's happening here is that Rubens Barrichello is actually holding up the cars behind. Salo, Herbert, and then behind that we've got one of the Arrows cars. Now look, here is where Salo tries to have a go, but Barrichello's got little wing. Look how small that wing on that Stewart is. He's got straight line speed advantage, and Salo can't quite get by. And therefore Barrichello has this straight line speed advantage. Look at the wings. That is the clue to it all. Now Salo might be able to do it. He should be able to brake later because he's got more downforce, but Barrichello's being brave, and Barrichello keeps him behind once again. Barrichello's lapping more slowly. He doesn't have the car in the best trim for going fast in a lap time. It hasn't got enough downforce, but it does make it very, very difficult to pass.
Outstanding racing here as Barrichello is pursued by Johnny Herbert.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we have Pedro Diniz actually there in the Arrows, having his best weekend for a long time. He qualified within a tenth of a second of world champion David Hill, and that's going to be quite a boost for him. He was actually faster in this morning's warm-up, but it has to be said too that the Arrows Yamaha reliability is such that it's all too easy to come unstuck. Look at Salo, he's trying all ways to get by Rubens Barrichello. He's probably being held up by something like half a second a lap. We've got his teammate there, is Verstappen, who is doing 22.7. Now, is Verstappen's last lap. Is he going to do it? And he's done it. I think he's done it. And
yes, he has done it. Salo goes ahead of Barrichello. Salo is now running 7th, Barrichello 8th, and Johnny Herbert is 9th, followed by Diniz, Panis, and Morbidelli. So the cars driven by Ken Tyrrell's drivers this afternoon with a couple of gutsy passes indeed. There is Salo, the white car. Now he's behind Johnny Herbert. It's Salo, Herbert, and Rubens Barrichello. So Barrichello is dropped to 9th behind Johnny Herbert.
Now there is Olivier Panis. He had that front wing change, but he's charging hard. But you know, the frustration for Salo can be indicated by the fact that Verstappen's last lap was a 22.5, a 1 minute 22.5, and Salo's a 1:25.1. Barrichello was holding Salo up to the tune of 2.5 seconds a lap. He's holding up Diniz now. I'm afraid the Stewart 14 have got their setup very wrong for this, unless there is a problem with that car of Barrichello's. But it will be understandable if they tried to go too light on downforce for the race. It worked in qualifying for 1 lap. But maybe the tyres are now telling they're sliding too much. He hasn't got the grip, and the straight line speed advantage is not enough to make up for the lack of grip by having those wing angles low. Look at the way Herbert and Salo are storming away now. This is a great race for Tyrrell. Tyrrell are really, really performing well. 6th for Verstappen, 7th for Salo. Ken Tyrrell will be absolutely skipping down there in the Williams pit.
And you saw Barrichello pursued by Diniz, Panis, and Morbidelli, running in 9th, 10th, and 11th places, respectively. Here is Rubens Barrichello, and Rubens Barrichello started the day 3rd on the grid, but he's dropped back, and the Ken Tyrrell cars have been absolutely spectacular. That was Salo going through ahead of Johnny Herbert.
Lap 19 now, and it's still pretty tight at the front. We're looking at this very tight, even tighter midfield scrap, but Michael Schumacher is 3.1 seconds ahead of Fizzy Fisichella. Fisichella is 1.4 seconds ahead of Jean Alesi. And then in fourth, David Coulthard is just 0.6 of a second behind Alesi. And 0.6 of a second means basically following. I would say Coulthard is being held up by Jean Alesi. But we need to really think about strategy now. We need to wonder what Schumacher and what Fisichella are going to be doing. If they are both on the same strategy, and I'm sure that the Jordan will be coming in around about lap 23 for its first stop, and that's only 5 laps away. The question is Schumacher going to be coming in then too?
And right now, as we look at Michael Schumacher, pursued by Fisichella, Alesi and Coulthard, to John Watson.
Jack, go ahead. Can you tell us what happened on the second lap? Everything looked so comfortable for you. Suddenly you lost it.
Well, yeah, it was comfortable because I wasn't pushing. I was just taking a few easy laps at the beginning of the race to look after the tires. But it was very slippery. There was a lot of dust that came on the track with the wind, and I misjudged the corner, went in a little bit too fast and lost it.
So what do you feel, I mean, other than dejection?
Well, a huge disappointment. I made a big mistake, a beginner's mistake in a way, and that's very frustrating. It will be a hard one to swallow.
Thank you, Jack. Back to you, Brian.
All right, John Watson, it's exactly as Dr. Jonathan Palmer had speculated. It's tough to say, but driver error as Panis is into the pits running 11th for Alain Prost, but it appears he simply made a mistake.
That's what we thought, and wasn't it wonderful for Jacques to be so candid? You know, a lot of drivers would have made some kind of excuse. He mentioned the dust, but that was 100% valid. He said he made a kid's error, and it's hard to say that, and it just shows you how tough the pressure is there. Panis in for his first stop. I think that is a fuel stop. We saw it going in there.
And there's the race leader. We take a commercial break. It's... Live in Montreal, there's Jean Alesi, followed by David Coulthard and Alexander Wirtz running 3rd, 4th, and 5th. There's Alesi, there's Coulthard. The yellow car is Giancarlo Fisichella, who is running 2nd for Eddie Jordan, some 5.5 seconds behind the race leader, Ferrari's Michael Schumacher. I mentioned Jordan, the other Jordan car, driven by Michael's brother Ralf, out of the race. If you're just joining us, a very hard collision, but fortunately with the safety tires and the safety rubber just beyond the start-finish area. And now Fisichella's time, I said 5.5 seconds, it's now 5.379 behind Michael Schumacher.
And I will be expecting Fisichella to be coming into the pits in the next 3 or 4 laps for his first stop. We're looking at something here we can't see. Oh, Frentzen in the Williams. There's Frentzen on our right-hand side. He's coming up the inside of the Sauber there. And Sauber of Morbidelli, I think that is there. But Frentzen coming back basically after his pit stop to change those tires. But let's think, we're going to be seeing Fisichella coming in.
And sorry to interrupt you, but quickly down to John Watson.
We've got Ralf Schumacher. Ralf, a hell of a big accident. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it was really... Well, I went at the end of the straight, the tire exploded, so I crashed into the barriers. It was really quite a hard crash. I thought, wow, now you hurt yourself, but nothing happened, so I was happy.
You're not hurt at all. You look fit and well, but it must have been a big blow.
Yeah, to be honest, yes.
Okay, Ralph. Take care. Thank you.
Good work, John. Thank you very much. And Jonathan Palmer, once again, you were dead on. It was a tire. You pointed out the blistering, I would say 2 or 3 laps before the incident occurred. We're on board with Jean Alesi as he pursues the second-place Jordan Peugeot of Giancarlo Fisichella. But again, an exploding tire doing Schumacher in this afternoon.
Yes, I'm sure that was a function of those blisters. You know, we know tyres are getting over-temperatured in some spots here. This is the teammate. Look, we need to keep looking at these tyres. They're probably, if anyone was going to get the blisters, we probably would have done so in the first 10 or so laps. There's probably less chance going on. But back to these pit stops. I'll be surprised if we don't see Fisichella coming in the next 3 or 4 laps for the first of what will therefore be 2 stops. But what Fisichella and the Jordan team are going to be hoping is that they're going to see Michael Schumacher come in as well for his first stop. Blisters there, a little bit on that right-hand front tyre of Alesi's car, but they cleaned up as the car goes along. Back to Jordan team, they're going to be hoping that Michael Schumacher comes in too. What the Jordan team don't want to find is the fact that Michael Schumacher is doing 1 stop, and that'll mean that his performance of pulling away from Fisichella is all the more impressive, because he will be having a heavier car that should really be slower.
24-year-old Giancarlo Fisichella, driving in his 15th Formula One race. His best ever finish was 4th at San Marino. Made his debut in Australia for Minardi in 1996, was 8th with Minardi at the 1996 Canadian Grand Prix, and he's a former test driver for Ferrari. He's running second, the yellow car. Now back out for a replay. There is Frentzen pursuing, it looks like, Barrichello. And Frentzen is having a rough afternoon, as is the Williams-Rothmans team. Villeneuve out of the race, now to the west end of the track. And there is Frentzen finally getting by Rubens Barrichello, driving for Jackie Stewart. You're watching live coverage of the 1997 Players Grand Prix. Montreal out of the pits and running in 8th place is Jos Verstappen, driving for Ken Tyrrell. Tyrrell's having quite a day. Into the pits, one of Jackie Stewart's drivers, and that is Barrichello.
So we know that all these guys are making 2 pit stops. That's the first of 2. That's bad news, really, for Stewart fans, because one might have thought that the relatively tardy race performance from Barrichello was because he was only going to stop once. He therefore had half a tank of fuel in. His car was heavier. That would make it slower. Now, this is going to be crucial with these 3. Big question, are these 3 all on a 2-stop strategy? Yes, they are. 2 of them are coming in. Is David Coulthard. So, who's going to get out? Alesi will want to get out ahead of Fisichella. The smart thing to do is for Benetton to put in less fuel than Jordan, so that Alesi can get out ahead. If Alesi can get out ahead, he will get the advantage on the track over Fisichella. Pit lane exit is going to be crucial to watch.
This is Fisichella. Also in the pits is Alesi. Coulthard is still on the track in 2nd place behind Schumacher, and first away is Jean Alesi. Jean Alesi followed by Giancarlo Fisichella. Alesi has dropped down to 4th place. Wirtz has gone into 3rd, driving the other Benetton.
And we just hear we've got a 10-second penalty for Barrichello there, so that may be for speeding in the pit lane. That's the most likely thing. Benetton did exactly what we expected there, and they got Jean Alesi out ahead of of Fisichella there. That's where it becomes important to work the strategy. You need to use these pit stops as an overtaking mechanism, and Benetton have always been very, very clever at that since the Michael Schumacher days, trying to get ahead, knowing what to do. Now, I suspect that Lacey's put in less, or Lacey's had a less fuel put in his car than went into the car of Fisichella, so he'll probably have to stop earlier at the next stop, around about lap 45, but by that time it probably won't matter because he'll be far enough ahead.
Here's the race leader. Michael Schumacher has now completed 25 laps here in Montreal. It's a 69-lap race, and he now has a huge 10.5-second lead over the McLaren Mercedes, driven by David Coulthard. The last Ferrari to win here in Montreal, well, it was 2 years ago. Jean Alesi, who's currently running 4th and driving for Benetton, then driving for Ferrari. He was the winner. In comes the other Benetton. This will be Wirtz into the pits. Wirtz was running 3rd.
Now, this is going to be interesting. It's Wirtz's first ever pit stop, so he's got every reason to make a little bit of a mistake here. The pressure is enormous. All going well. It's going to be about 7 seconds, I'm sure. It's going to be the first of 2, and away Wirtz goes. Is he going to stall? No, he's got it all absolutely right. You know, the Benetton team have been really impressed by the coolness of that guy. That's Mika Salo in the Tyrrell, so that's both Tyrrells of having their pit stop. But, you know, what's going to be really interesting is what happens in the next 3 laps with regard to Schumacher and Coulthard, because at the moment these guys have not stopped, and if they don't stop in the next 3 laps, I'm going to say that they're only going to make 1 pit stop, and that's going to be round about lap 35, and that's going to make their current performance all the more impressive. That is what their rivals don't want to know. They want to think they were coming in for the first of 2 stops. They don't want to think that they can run at that pace with so much more fuel in the car.
Remember, this is a 69-lap race. Here is Heinz-Harald Frentzen as he goes by Verstappen and moves into 7th place. Verstappen is now running 8th. The race leader, the bright red Ferrari. Ferrari, 50 years, celebrating 50 years last May 11th. Ferrari last won here 2 years ago, and this afternoon, Michael Schumacher, boy, I'll tell you what, if this car holds up, and that's a big if because Ferrari's had trouble in 1997. Now, it appears Ferrari will be coming in. There's only one Ferrari on the course. That is Schumacher. Eddie Irvine was out before the first lap was over, just about 300 yards, 400 yards past the start-finish area in that hairpin turn at the west end of the island. So Michael Schumacher will be coming in. Jonathan Palmer, it appears it will not be a one-stop race for Schumacher.
And that's going to be a real relief to the McLaren team. They're going to be pretty pleased with Coulthard, 2nd place, 10 seconds behind. They would be demoralised if Schumacher kept going round until mid-distance. So he's going to be coming in this lap. Now, Schumacher is the expert. He is the best at coming in fast now. He will be on the limit of pace, and don't forget they have an 80 kilometre per minute. Look at that speed. You see what I mean? He's opposite locking in the pit lane, but still keeping it below the 80 kilometres per hour speed limit. He will have a device on the car, as they all do, so he can't overspeed. Schumacher makes every part of his motor race count towards success. Watch the clock, and it's going to be a good start. That's what we expected from that. So that definitely is the first of 2. He will not get to the end of the race on that amount of fuel. So the next question is David Coulthard. I really would expect to see a McLaren stop next. We will be extremely impressed if David Coulthard there manages to get to the midpoint and makes it just 1 stop. You know, he set that fastest lap. That I think he would be inclined to do, knowing that he was coming in very soon. He can push the tyres without worrying. He's going to have a new set soon.
This is the race leader, David Coulthard, now leading by nearly 7 seconds over Michael Schumacher. Alesi is 4th. Alesi is 3rd, rather. Fisichella is 4th. Johnny Herbert is 5th. We're due to go to a commercial, but we're going to hang on and see if the race leader, David Coulthard, pits after this lap. It'll be very interesting to see what he does. Down to the hairpin turn at the east end of Ile Notre Dame in front of this record crowd. Well over 100,000 here this afternoon. Jacques Villeneuve out of this race before the 2nd lap. He was very candid, said it was simply driver error. He lost it, and down to the pit area comes the race leader, Coulthard. Will he come into the pits or will he not? No, Coulthard remains on the racetrack.
I think we might have a race on our hands because it looks like he's going to make just 1 stop. If he doesn't come in at the end of this lap, then surely that is what he must be doing. And as he's going to make just 1 stop, then it means that both he and Schumacher have 1 more stop now to go. and it means that Coulthard can afford to be a little bit slower at this point than Schumacher because he's been carrying less fuel, carrying more fuel.
Well, we'll hang on before we go for a break one more time, and that's it. Coulthard's lead now nearly 10 seconds over Michael Schumacher. The big question, will the Scotsman come in for a pit stop? It would mean he's on a two-stop strategy. Jonathan Palmer figuring if he doesn't stop after this lap, he is on a one-stop race, and we will have a race indeed. His second year with McLaren. He has 2 career victories, Australia this year and Portugal 2 years ago, and he was 4th here last year. There's the second place Ferrari of Michael Schumacher, but the big question is, will David Coulthard come into the pits at the end of this lap?
And there is still absolutely no pit activity at McLaren, and you know, he's really too far around the lap for him to be able to come in the pits and the crew get ready in time. This is looking good from our point of view and looking good from David Coulthard and McLaren's point of view.
There's Jean Alesi. Jean Alesi running 3rd right there, driving for Benetton, so it appears that David Coulthard is not coming in for a pit stop, and his lead right now, he's gone by our booth at the start-finish area. Barrichello in trouble. David Coulthard goes by. It appears he's on a one-stop race. Stay with us. We take a commercial break. You're watching. Live in Montreal, David Coulthard is the race leader on his 32nd lap. The lead more than 8 seconds over Michael Schumacher. Alesi's running 3rd. Fisichella for Jordan is 4th. With Dr. Jonathan Palmer, I'm Brian Williams, and if you're just joining us, Jacques Villeneuve, and he was very candid in talking with John Watson. Driver error. He smacked the wall coming into the start-finish area, about to complete his 2nd lap, and he was out of the race. So Jacques Villeneuve is out of the race this afternoon. But Jonathan Palmer, for people just joining us, the story is this man, McLaren and David Coulthard from Scotland. It appears he is on a one pit stop race. This man, Schumacher, has already been in once, will have to stop once more.
That's absolutely correct. In the early stages, Coulthard there was running in 4th, behind Fisichella 2nd, Alesi 3rd. That's all changed around now. Alesi is still 3rd, Fisichella 4th, but Coulthard is leading. In reality, Schumacher is leading because he's probably made that, well, he's made the one stop. But what's interesting too is that we've got the Williams crew are ready and waiting for Heinz-Harald Frentzen. I think we can expect to see Frentzen coming in. He's worked his way back up to 6th place, and with 6th place for Frentzen. And if he has this stop, I think it'll be a long one. I think we're going to be this. We've seen 7 or 8 second stops. If we see these mid-race stops, they're going to be more like 10 seconds, 9 or 10 seconds. That's how long it'll take to get enough fuel on to reach the end of the race.
Alesi, followed by Giancarlo Fisichella, who is running in 4th place. Alesi, a winner here for Ferrari in 1995, is currently running in 3rd place, and as you predicted, into the pits comes Heinz-Harald Frentzen, currently running 6th for Frank Williams, and we go down to John Watson. John?
They've got Paul Stewart here. Great confusion over Rubens Barrichello. Paul, what's the story?
Well, he was called in for a 10-second penalty, and they got the cars confused, it appears, between Mika Salo and himself, because going in the first corner with Salo trying to overtake him and then backed off, and so it made it look like Rubens had overtaken him, which he hadn't done. unfortunately, the race report, that's what it is, and there's nothing I can do about it.
Just got to bite the bullet this time, Paul.
Well, just got to put it down to whatever. I'm not quite sure. It's certainly not experience, but I've asked them to review it afterwards, but it's not going to change anything. It's just unfortunate. Depending on how the outcome of the race, it could mean that we could get back into points. So it's not good.
I agree. Sorry to hear the story. Many thanks. Brian, back to you up in the cabin.
All right, John, we're looking at Giancarlo Fisichella, who's running third and pursuing the second, or running fourth rather, and pursuing the third place car, the blue vehicle there. That is Jean Alesi driving for Benetton. There's Alesi, followed by Fisichella. Johnny Herbert is fifth, and running sixth is Alexander Wirtz, replacing Gerhard Berger, who is missing this race with a sinus infection. Jean Alesi down to the west end of Ile Notre Dame, pursued by Fisichella, and a couple of yards behind is Johnny Herbert.
And the other person that hasn't stopped as well at the moment is Johnny Herbert. You see, he therefore is also on a one-stop strategy. Now, David Coulthard's going to lose something like 25 seconds of that order when he comes in for that stop. So we have to expect him to be, therefore, behind Michael Schumacher. Schumacher's only 7.4 seconds behind Coulthard. And it's going to be interesting because Coulthard's only 22 seconds ahead of Jean Alesi. So when Coulthard comes out, the crucial thing will be, that's Johnny Herbert. I beg your pardon, that's Morbidelli. The crucial thing is when Coulthard comes out, will he be ahead or behind of Jean Alesi? We know he'll be behind Michael Schumacher.
The vehicle that spun out, Jonathan, is Jarno Trulli from Minardi. So the Minardi's having a rough day. Katayama out early, and now Trulli spinning here as we look at Jean Alesi running third, and he's pursued rather by Fisichella and Johnny Herbert. We haven't talked about Herbert this afternoon. There's Villeneuve standing by with John Watson. John, it's all yours.
Jack, it's about half an hour since you spun out of the race. What are your thoughts after the incident?
Well, my thoughts aren't very positive. I made a big mistake, and it's a huge disappointment here in Montreal, and mostly to make a mistake like that on the second lap, and it's a long race. When you know you have a strong car, it's just very disappointing.
No, you didn't really. You went under pressure, and there's a long, long way to go in this Grand Prix.
Yeah, I wasn't even pushing. I was actually sleeping for the first two laps, just looking after the tires, taking it easy, and it really surprised me. I got into the corner, and it felt all right, and just in the middle of it, the rear snapped, and I didn't catch it. So, you know, normally I haven't made mistakes like that in the races for quite a while, and it's mistakes you make in Formula 3 or Atlantics. It's not mistakes you should make in Formula 1.
You had a chance to watch what's going on in the Grand Prix now. I mean, the reality is, where do you think you would have been if you were running?
Well, the thing is, this morning in the warm-up, we did a very quick lap time after only 4 laps, and we had a lot of fuel in, so the car was very, very strong, and we were quick down the straight as well on the low downforce. So I was confident in taking it easy in the first laps and let Michael go away, because I knew we could fight back once the track cleared and once we got the good temperature in the tires. So that's why I'm doubly disappointed.
You said track conditions were very dirty in the opening laps.
Yeah, with the wind there was a lot of dust, same as yesterday for qualifying. The wind brought a lot of dust, and it was very slippery. But, you know, it just takes 5 or 6 laps to clean up, but I didn't stay long enough.
Listen, you're a bright guy. These things only last momentarily. Your next thoughts are now towards the French Grand Prix at Manicourt and the test there this week. Yeah, we got a test coming up next week, and we're going to do some good homework there. We tested last week, and it wasn't very good. The car didn't feel great, so we have some catch-up to do. Getting competitive, isn't it? Yeah, it's getting tighter and tighter, and I think that's good. It makes it more interesting for everybody for the championship. It makes it more difficult for us, but it's more interesting. Yeah, but you don't like it easy? No, easy would be boring. Of course, I guess if you could get one championship easy, that would be fine, but only one then. But the battles are what is the most important in racing, being on the edge, getting the big rush, and also the battles. So if it gets tighter and tighter, it's just going to make it more interesting. Okay, Jack, many thanks, and here's looking forward to Manicourt.
John Watson, thank you. Excellent interview. You're watching Alesi. There's Alesi running third, pursued by Fisichella, who's fourth, and Herbert, who's fifth. Dr. Jonathan Palmer is a former driver, and speaking of drivers, Greg Moore, the IndyCar star, is in the booth with us. A very classy admission by Jacques Villeneuve. No excuses. He said, look, I made the mistake. I have to live with it.
I think it also shows you, too, just how fine the margin is between watching those guys going through that turn there.
There's what happened right there.
Exactly, but they're watching those guys and seeing the cars not slide. The margin between not sliding and it going too far, too quickly, so you're off, is tiny.
That interview showing the great maturity of Jacques Villeneuve. We know he's mature on the racetrack. He is indeed mature off the racetrack. As we look at Fisichella, comes Mika Salo, who is currently running 8th. He will drop to 9th, and Panis goes by him. We're back live in Montreal. They've run 37 of 69 laps. Coulthard leads Michael Schumacher by 10 seconds, Jean Alesi by 39, and Giancarlo Fisichella by nearly 40 seconds. Nakano into the pits, and he will come out. He is not a factor in this race today.
But David Coulthard really is, and he's just set the fastest lap of the race with a 1 minute 19.6, and that's truly amazing. You know, he's on this first set of tyres still. The tyres are old. Now there's David Coulthard. He's still out on the track. He's looked after those tyres really well when the car's been heavy, and the good thing about this circuit is that he's low on tyre wear. Tyre wear itself is actually virtually non-existent. So as the laps are reeled off, the cars get lighter. You should get faster and faster as the car becomes lighter, because the tyre performance actually doesn't degrade. If they don't... Now here's Frentzen. He's going to be going by somebody. I think he's going by Verstappen.
No, Salo, when he went in the pits, I believe it is Salo, and boy, Frentzen, this is where Villeneuve hit the wall early on, Jonathan.
Yeah, I think that was probably Frentzen getting by Verstappen in the Tyrrell. Frentzen's having to have a great comeback. There is Coulthard there. He's still out on this track. You know, he should have stopped at lap 34. This is going to be a mid-distance stop. Not only has he stayed out, he's now on his 39th lap, and still the McLaren crew are not out. This is great stuff. But I think he's now done enough. When he comes out of this pit stop, he's going to be ahead of Jean Alesi. He's going to lose about 26 seconds. So that's going to mean he's going to end up being 16 seconds behind Michael Schumacher. When Coulthard stops, Schumacher will go into the lead by 16 seconds. Alesi will be probably 4 seconds behind Coulthard.
As we look at David Coulthard, is McLaren with Mercedes power. I mentioned Greg Moore, the pride and joy of Maple Ridge, British Columbia, who's won 2 straight on the kart circuit, is with us in the booth. We'll talk to Greg shortly. Greg also driving with Mercedes power this year, as is the other Canadian, Paul Tracy, for Roger Penske. David Coulthard now on his 40th lap out of 69 and leading by 10.326 seconds over Michael Schumacher.
And we need to keep our fingers crossed a bit for David Coulthard here, because they are running. There's the crew. There's the crew, the McLaren crew, getting ready for this stop of David Coulthard's. It's going to be a relatively long stop. It's going to be 9 or 10 seconds, so don't panic and it goes over 7, because they've got to get enough fuel in that car to get to the end of the race. Mercedes have got the most powerful engine in Formula 1 now, and they're rumoured to have 785 horsepower. In he comes. Down through, past the white line. That's the 80-kilometre speed limit zone. The engine sounding ropey because it's against the speed limiter. That's why. But McLaren crew do the best pit stops in the business overall, I would say. We're going to see one now, but of course it's the fuel load going in. The red pipe there is where the fuel's going in. That takes the time. You can see the fuel still going in. The tyres are done. Oh, very, very nearly did David Coulthard stall that car. But actually, all of these cars have an anti-stall system. When the engine revs get too low, an automatic clutch disengages it. Now, that system is normally so that if a car should spin on the track, it's got a much, much smaller chance of actually stopping. It'll just dip the clutch effectively, and it may have been that system that actually prevented David Coulthard from stalling there, and that would have been a blow that would have cost him maybe 5 seconds, certainly 2.
With Coulthard into the pits and back out, the new race leader is Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari, now by 8 seconds. Coulthard did not lose a position, though, to Alesi, so it's Schumacher, followed by Coulthard, Alesi. Fisichella is 4th. In Montreal, on board with Jean Alesi. The race leader, though, is Michael Schumacher, followed by David Coulthard and Jean Alesi. And joining us in the booth this afternoon from Maple Ridge, British Columbia, is Greg Moore. Greg with 2 straight wins on the IndyCar circuit. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Now, you noticed something as we watched the action in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. You noticed something, you were talking to Jonathan Palmer about Schumacher's tires.
Yeah, it looks to me like Schumacher's got some big blistering on the rear tires there, and that's going to really slow him down. I see David was conserving his tires quite well there, so, you know, it looks quite good for David right now.
That's Fisichella, the yellow car, currently running 3rd. Greg, you run next week in Portland, I believe. The key to your success so far this season? I mean, it's been remarkable. You were close last year. It's not a surprise, but it's suddenly come like that.
It has, and it's just a lot of hard work is now starting to pay off. We've got some good luck, and you know, I'd rather be lucky than good any day in this motorsport business. But you know, everything's been quite good. You know, the players' team's been doing a great job for me, and you know, it looks like David's doing a good job out there. So it's another one for the young guys.
Jonathan Palmer, what do you think? We have a Canadian in Formula One in Jacques Villeneuve, who's out of this race, but the time will not be too long, I suggest, before we see Greg Moore in F1.
Well, it depends if Greg wants to be in F1, I would think, and I'm sure he'll be having a lot of cozy discussions with Jacques Greg over the next few years, working out what you can earn where, I should think, where the future is. But you're doing a great job in IndyCar, no doubt about it.
Thanks a lot.
Greg, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Right. Stay with us in the booth. We look forward to seeing you in Toronto for the Molson Indy Toronto. And again, Greg is pointing out they're going to make a pit stop, and it could be for the tires. He's on a 2-stop race. Greg, keep the headset on, and we'll talk to you a bit here. Jonathan, what do you figure?
Well, this stop's a bit early, but he's going to have to do that. Look at that left rear around the middle, the black bands we described before with Frenson. We saw it with Ralf Schumacher. We're seeing it with Michael. But what's interesting here is that Michael hasn't really been under a huge amount of pressure. Sure, he's had Coulthard going well, but it just shows you how unpredictable these sets of tyres are, in that the teams tried to prepare them well. They tried to heat cycle them, running them on Friday, running them on Saturday, but even so, and no one will have been more careful. I can tell you that Michael Schumacher, look at it, there is that big band of it. He's going to have to come in and put another set on, and when he gets that other set on, he's going to have to be careful not to actually do the very same thing to the next set. He's still driving quickly, though. He's still doing he's still going virtually as fast as anybody, and he's still 9.6 seconds ahead of David Coulthard.
So it's Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard second, Alesi running third, Fisichella fourth. Herbert, and into the pits will come Michael Schumacher. That's Johnny Herbert. He's been in for a long, long time.
That's because he's had a 10-second penalty, and that probably would have been speeding in the pit lane on his last stop.
That's Panis, and following Panis into the pits comes Michael Schumacher. Greg Moore spotted it. You see the right of your screen. It's his left tire, the stripe on the tire. It's blistering. Now we'll watch to see when Coulthard goes by. Coulthard has just gone across the start-finish line and taken the lead.
Right, so Schumacher's out. Now that's his last fuel stop. And we know that David Coulthard's done his as well. So Schumacher has got 8.5 seconds to make up. This is a 69-lap race. They're on lap 45. And so you can work it out, but he's got some 24 laps to go to try and make up that 8.5 seconds. And at the same time as making up that time, he's not going to push that hard that he will overcook those tires and get yet more blisters, because if he gets more blisters in the next 5 laps, that's going to effectively end any challenge Michael Schumacher can make to the lead of David Coulthard.
So Coulthard's tires appear to be fine. Morbidelli's in the pits. Greg Moore, you drive Mercedes Power for your team, the Players team on the kart circuit. This is a Mercedes engine. You surprised he can go with a one-stop race?
No, I'm really not, because the Mercedes guys, they've been working so hard on fuel mileage, and it looks to me like David's getting good mileage out there. But you know, like Jonathan was saying, he's conserving those tires quite well. He's turning the fastest laps out there above anybody, and you know, if he keeps this up, he's looking strong for the race win.
What's so important with this is just trying to get that right chassis balance, Greg, isn't it? It must be that nothing is more crucial for chassis balance than when you're running on fast ovals. That, presumably, you get an imbalance, you'll destroy tyres instantly.
Well, that's just it. And tires are such an issue, especially in Formula 1 and IndyCar both now, because there's a tire war going on, and everyone's trying to run the softest tires possible, and that's why you're seeing a lot of blistering happening now in the Formula 1.
Michael Schumacher has just passed Olivier Panis. He's lapped him. Panis is running 7th, so that means there are 6 cars on the same lap. Those cars are Coulthard, Michael Schumacher, Jean Alesi, Giancarlo Fisichella, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and Johnny Herbert. Out of the race before the second lap is Jacques Villeneuve for Williams, and Villeneuve admitting it was driver error. Jonathan.
It's pit stops, second round of pit stops now. We're expecting to see Jean Alesi coming for his second stop. Fisichella, I think, is actually in the pits at the moment. We're not seeing. Yes, there he is. There's Fisichella. And that should be another 7.5 second stop. It is. Fisichella's away cleanly. Let's watch for Jean Alesi. He needs to come in for his second stop yet, and then we will have the pattern for the top 6. We've got Coulthard now. He's had his stop. He's running to the end of the race. Michael Schumacher has had his second stop. He's running to the end of the race. Jean Alesi we're waiting for. That's Alesi. He's got to come in. His teammate Wirtz has dropped right back. He's 7 laps behind now. Some big problems there. Frentzen has had his second stop. The first stop actually was very early for those tyres that he had when Frentzen's tyres blistered. The Williams team put in enough fuel to get to the end of the race when he came in mid-distance. And then we've got Fisichella. He's all done on pit stops. He's had his second one. And Johnny Herbert has had his one stop. Okay, he came in again, but that was just for the pit lane speeding infringement. A great shame, because Herbert yet again has driven a great race with the Petronas engine Sauber. He didn't qualify well, but he got it all together. Watch out for Alesi. We're with him now. He's got to come into the pit soon. This could be the lap, but it isn't.
And this exactly is where Jacques Villeneuve smacked the wall and went out of the race just before completing his second lap. Here's Villeneuve's teammate Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and he is currently running 4th. We understand that Villeneuve is now leaving Ile Notre Dame. Montreal, Johnny Herbert currently running in 6th place. The race leader is David Coulthard, now by nearly 14 seconds over Michael Schumacher. Alesi is 3rd, Frentzen is 4th, running 5th is Fisichella, and as I say, 6th is Johnny Herbert. Right now, down to the pits, and once again, John Watson. John?
Brian, I've got Alexander Wirtz, who's standing in for Gerhard Berger. Alexander, first Grand Prix, but a short one.
Yeah, it was a short. Unfortunately, I was in the points. Sometimes was 5th. I was 6th in the end. I tried to save my brakes especially, and I would imagine that some guys get problems in the end, but my drive shaft or gearbox broke down out of the hairpin without anything noticed before. Just went on the throttle carefully, and then it happened.
It's been a pretty character-building weekend for you yesterday in qualifying, an accident which we believe wasn't your fault.
No, of course it's my fault when I sit in the car, but it was due to some problems on the circuit. It was dusty, so the team says it's not my fault. I was in qualifying, and when you're on the limit, there is no space for dirt on the tarmac. So,
okay, Alexander, best luck next time.
Thank you, John. Heinz-Harald Frentzen now running 4th ahead of Jean Alesi. Or excuse me, Frentzen running 3rd. Alesi's now 4th. So Alesi, you look at him there, is running 4th behind Coulthard, Michael Schumacher, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen. So finally some good news, Jonathan Palmer, for Frank Williams.
Yeah, absolutely. Frentzen really has been driving well, and to get back up to 3rd has been a great effort, but Coulthard is being fantastic. You know, he's now 12.5 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher. Schumacher's been able to do little overall about it. The gap has stayed the same for the last 4 laps, give or take a bit of ebbing and flowing. And, you know, I'd be surprised if Michael can pick up the 0.4 of a second he needs to get ahead of Coulthard or to close on Coulthard by the end. But of course it's one thing catching up with David Coulthard, but the other thing is getting by, because Coulthard's McLaren is a lot faster with that Mercedes engine in the straight than Michael Schumacher's Ferrari.
Jonathan, we want to wish good luck to Greg Moore. Thank you for stopping by today. Good luck in Portland, and we'll see you at the Molson Indy in Toronto.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Greg. And great of you to spot that blistered tire on the car of Michael Schumacher. Heinz-Harald
And we've got
Frentzen.
more blisters on Frentzen's car. Look at the left rear of Frentzen's car there. In the middle of that, I think we saw another spot. And the Williams crew already. The Williams crew are waiting. Have we got another pit stop for Frentzen? Well, he's charging. He's just set a fast lap at 119.9. Look at these tyres. You know what we're looking for. We're looking for these dark bands. There they are on Schumacher's again. Look at Schumacher's car. Schumacher's challenge, I'm predicting it is over. Now, that's a bold prediction, but you look at Schumacher's left rear again. See those bands? That is blistered tyres. And this is going to be wonderful for sight for McLaren. That's just what they want. Panis is crawling all over the back of Michael Schumacher. The Ferrari crew are going to have to surely come out again. There are 20 laps to go, and Schumacher will not make the end of the race on that set of tyres.
Panis spins a bit, flips it aside, but regains control and passes Michael Schumacher. So Panis is back on the same lap with Schumacher. He's running 7th. Schumacher is currently 2nd, but dropping now more than 14 seconds behind David Coulthard. John Watson said at the top of the show, tires, and you echoed it, tires could be a major, major story. Look at the back. There is left tires, but on the screen, it's the rear right. Watch, and you will see the stripes, the ridges on the tires as Alain Prost looks on at his car, Panis. But watch the stripes, the blistering of the tires for Schumacher.
Yes, and Prost is going to be so disappointed really now, you know, because his man, Panis, is down in 7th. This was the sight he was dreaming about. Goodyear tyres blistering, letting the Bridgestone cars come through. You can see it's getting worse. Schumacher drops back, but it's all been frustrated by that first corner incident in which Panis lost his nose, and as a result of that, Panis dropped back. But, you know, Panis was a bit of a tip to win this race here today. The Bridgestone tyres looking good. And it's a great shame for Goodyear. There's no doubt about it. Goodyear can make some great tyres and have made some great tyres, but on this particular race, they've not had the best tyre for the job. I'm sure that really has been the Bridgestone. But David Coulthard is now 14.2 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher. As we predicted, Schumacher's challenge is really over. The Ferrari team are ready. The Schumacher is coming in. That tyre is absolutely shredded. Look at him. He nearly loses it in the pit lane. And he's going to do well. He's going to retain his 2nd place, I'm sure, because Frentzen in 3rd is going to also have to come in for another set of tyres. We'd like to look at the rubber on that Williams car. It's going to be a quick stop. Is there any fuel? No fuel should need to go in because they've done all of that on that 2nd stop. 6.5 seconds tells you how fast they can change tyres. Let's see how long it takes to the Williams guys to do the same thing. Again, I'll be surprised if they've put any fuel in that car of Frentzen's when he comes in. Frentzen comes in the pits. This is goodbye to third place unless reliability steps in. So into the pits. Look at the wheels locking there. Frentzen comes in, stops on cue.
Alesi has just gone by and moved into third place. Frentzen is down to fourth. He's down to fifth. Fisichella gone by. Right now, as Frentzen comes back on the racetrack after an 8.2-second pit stop, he finds himself in fifth place behind David Coulthard, Michael Schumacher, Jean Alesi, and Giancarlo Fisichella.
Well, that was a refueling stop. We called that wrong, I have to say. I thought Frentzen...
Here's Coulthard into the pits. Look at the blisters on the back of his car. Right side, his left tires.
Blisters are what this race is all about. So, Coulthard was ahead. Schumacher's that's what Ferrari want to see. They couldn't believe it. And
He stalled.
He stalled. Now this is handing it back now to Michael Schumacher. The seconds are ticking away. Should be 6.5 seconds. David, we saw him nearly stall on that first pit stop. We thought it was the anti-stall system that saved him. They're trying to get it going. Watch for Schumacher to come by. Schumacher's surely going to go by.
Listen to this crowd. The fans sensing Ferrari will take the lead. And down through the start-finish area goes Michael Schumacher as Coulthard has had a disastrous pit stop. And we have an accident out on the track. That appears to be...
That's Panis. It's a huge
Olivier
accident.
Panis.
Huge accident there for Olivier Panis. Let's hope he's all right in that. I don't know where it's happened, but that is a big accident.
He's moving. You can see him moving his head. That is Olivier Panis, 30 years of age.
I can see the race being red flagged for this. I can see this race being red flagged. We've got some, well, it's the safety cars coming out. So safety car comes out, that's going to mean queuing up behind. So that is actually going to help David Coulthard because he'll be able to close up behind Michael Schumacher. Anything he lost in that pit, he's still there actually, so no, he's too far behind. Panis climbing out of the car, looking like he's climbing out of the car. Thank goodness for that. We couldn't see the front end of that, but that is a very big accident. This is how it happened. Let's have a look. That is, oh my goodness, that is a big accident. He's flat through there. Now, was that a tyre-induced situation? Up go the tyres, up goes the car. Well, let's see, he was lucky not to get his head. Let's hope Panis hasn't had his head touched by those tyres there. Prost wondering what happened. Well, he's being carried out of it, so he's obviously got some...
Now he's asking them to, he's raising his right arm saying, hold it, leave me alone. They're trying to pull him out of this car. This is on the north side of Ile Notre Dame, really facing downtown Montreal. Olivier Panis was currently, there's Coulthard back out on the track. Olivier Panis was running in 8th place. He appears to have leg injuries, and we should not be surprised because the legs sit so far up in the cockpit, and he hit hard. But again this afternoon, we saw it with Ralf Schumacher, Jonathan, the importance of the tires and the safety barriers.
Tires are a marvellous cushioner of the blow, and Panis would have been doing 250 kilometres per hour around that corner. That's 155 miles an hour. That was not a driver mistake from Panis. That was something went wrong with the car or the tires or something. I really believe that, because that corner should be flat out. We saw how suddenly that Prost car snapped sideways. He then ricocheted towards the outside. It's probably a little premature to say Panis has definitely got injuries to his legs. Let's hope he hasn't. Let's hope it's just shock. He's got the best medical treatment there. He's obviously conscious. We know that. He's got the medic there. The safety car is out. That means that the flow of racing cars beside that damaged car of Panis will be slow. They'll be just going around, gathering speed. So let's look at the order. We've got Schumacher now in first, Alesi in second, third place is Fisichella, fourth is Frentzen, fifth is Herbert, sixth is Nakano.
Now we will get one more look at this as team owner Alain Prost looks on. You say it's not driver error here, Jonathan.
Yeah, look at that. The car just very suddenly snapped sideways. Now, did he clip the curb on that left-hander? I really don't think it was that, but watch the tyres go up. The car goes up. The tyres going up actually is good news. It helps dissipate the energy. You know, the chassis on these cars are amazingly strong. The driver's feet have to be behind the front axle line, and that's a safety thing they introduced. Now, Panis is certainly getting a treatment from the medics there. He's obviously in some sort of a trouble. That's Professor Watkins down there with him, who's headed up the medical side of Formula One for many, many years now. This is really, this is tremendous shame for Panis. Let's just hope it's nothing serious, because he is a gifted driver and he's done so well.
Professor Sid Watkins, a neurosurgeon from London who heads up the medical squad. He is helped here by the well-known heart surgeon Dr. Hugh Scully from Toronto. I had dinner with both those doctors last night, and this is without question, the best medical team on any racing circuit anywhere in the world. We can tell you that Olivier Panis was conscious when he was lifted from the car. Actually, we saw him wave off a couple of the course workers. He is now laying beside the track, and Sid Watkins, Professor Sid Watkins, is there. The safety car is out, if you will. It's a full course yellow here with 54 of 69 laps completed in Montreal. Jonathan Palmer.
Now, it's possible that this race could be stopped. We are beyond the 75% distance point. That would have been at lap 51. The race could be stopped, and I would not be surprised, because they need to really rebuild that tyre wall. There has to be a question mark about... Oh, now look at the front of that car. That has had a massive impact. I must say, it's going to be hard to think Panis has escaped without any injury. Look at the front of that Ligier car. They really should rebuild that tyre wall before the cars can continue racing. And I question whether or not they will do that. I should be surprised if the race continues to the very end under the safety car. I think there has to be a possibility of the organisers looking at it, assessing how long it will take to repair that damage, get the car out of the way, rebuild the tyre wall to an acceptable standard before they work out what they do.
Dr. Jonathan Palmer, you are a medical doctor. I mentioned Professor Sid Watkins, Dr. Hugh Scully. Talk to me about the medical care and the procedures that go on in an incident like this.
Well, the medical care, as you can imagine, is absolutely superb. We have Sid Watkins, who is a professor of neurosurgery. Now, let's look at the car. Look at the front of that car there. These cars are made from carbon fibre, and it does, I have to say, it looks like there has been quite a lot of deformation of that car. I think Panis is indeed injured. I think that really is the likely thing. At least he was conscious, we saw that. But if he manages to escape this accident without having any breakages to the lower limbs, I will be very surprised indeed. You know, this was a big accident.
Where are the doctors positioned? A lot of people new to racing. We mentioned Sid Watkins, Hugh Scully, the heart surgeon from Toronto. They're based where? At the start-finish line?
They are doctors all around the circuit in various cars. We have the main medic being based in the pits. You know, back to this race, really, you know, I would be surprised if a contributory factor is not these blistering tyres. We know it's happened on the Goodyear runners. We know that Ralf Schumacher's had a blown tyre. We know that a lot of people have had tyre problems. They're having more tyre problems. Is there really not a case for looking at this seriously and wondering, is it correct to continue the race? We are beyond the 75% distance, and there's a question mark about the future safety of the race, I think.
Now, you talked about Goodyear's, the blistering that Michael Schumacher suffered. Remember, Panis is on Bridgestone tires, so this is a problem that seems to be affecting all tires here this afternoon. Parts of this track were resurfaced following the race last year, but no word right now as to what's causing it.
No, I think we must make it clear we do not know that this accident from Panis had anything to do with a Bridgestone tyre or a failure of a Bridgestone tyre, and it probably didn't. We just don't know that. We do know that tyres have been heavily stressed. There have been question marks about it, you know, and it is not impossible. We may well never find out what happened in the accident, but looks like the rear end of the car is intact, and that will mean, because the rear end of the car is intact, they should have a good chance of seeing if there's any suspension breakage at the rear end of it, any kind of damage to wishbones, the suspension joints that could have caused that initial snap. That initial snap we saw looked to me like something being wrong at the back of the car. They'll be able to inspect those tyres. They'll probably cut the tyres up to look for little micro blisters. They'll certainly look at the suspension very carefully indeed. It may have been, but I just really doubt it. It may have been that Olivier simply clipped the curb too much on the inside, but it didn't look like the car got out of shape at all. On the left-hand component, he'd really got beyond the apex, and then before he turned right, and you can see there's a drip up. There's one of the marshals there, the paramedics holding up the bag with fluid going in. But that's a reasonable precaution. Whenever anyone has any degree of injury, and Panis certainly would have had a lot of shock, you would expect to have an intravenous line put in, because apart from replacing fluid, and that's a very important thing to do anyway, it also gives you a line into the body to inject any kind of drugs that are required for whatever condition is present.
We look into the pits of Alain Prost Grand Prix Racing. There is the master in the middle.
And I think the last time Alain Prost had, you know, these kind of feelings, I would have thought would have been back when Ayrton Senna tragically lost his life. The race is stopped. That is what we thought. That is what I thought might happen. The race is stopped. We're beyond 75% distance. That means that Michael Schumacher has won the Canadian Grand Prix. Jean Alesi is second. Fizzy Keller is in third. Heinz-Harald Frentzen fourth. Johnny Herbert in fifth. Nakano in sixth. David Coulthard, after that stunning drive, such frustration, finishes in 7th place. Pedro Diniz in 8th. Damon Hill in 9th, having his first finish of the year. Gianni Morbidelli in 10th place. And Olivier Panis, well, he's obviously not finished the race in reality, but he would be classified.
So an amazing day here in Montreal, a tragic day in many ways, a disappointing day first off for the Canadian fans with Jacques Villeneuve going out. He admitted driver error before 2 laps were complete as he hit the wall, and now hopefully Olivier Panis is all right as he's being moved into the ambulance and removed from the north side of Ile Notre Dame. The race has been stopped, and Michael Schumacher has won the 1997 Players Grand Prix of Canada. Hang on, Jonathan Palmer's raising his hand here for just a minute. Jonathan?
Well, we're just saying if there is a situation here for the race to be restarted. I actually don't believe there is. I'm looking at the rules. I'm just checking. But I believe that if it's 75% distance, then the race is over. And we are beyond 75%. By my calculator, it's just over 51 laps. Would have been a 75% distance point. And we are clearly beyond that because it's lap 55 when the monitors are stopped on. The race is stopped. We see it there, lap 56.
Olivier Panis being loaded into the ambulance on the north side of Ile Notre Dame, facing downtown Montreal, driving for Alain Prost. He was running in 11th place when the accident happened. That is Jean Alesi on the right, talking to Michael Schumacher, who's still in his car. The race has been stopped. We'll take a commercial break and return live to Montreal. You're watching the 1997 Players Grand Prix of Canada exclusively on CBC. There's Michael Schumacher, the winner of the 1997 Players Grand Prix of Canada. This race has been stopped. The last Ferrari to win was Jean Alesi. There's Alesi, the right of your screen. He's second today for Benetton. And a great story, a young Italian driver, Giancarlo Fisichella, who finishes third. The story now, and of course, our thoughts very much with the French driver, Olivier Panis. On the left, Fisichella, who's third as the race is stopped. In the middle, the winner, Schumacher. And on the right is Jean Alesi. Dr. Jonathan Palmer, the ambulance has now removed Olivier Panis from the north side of Ile Notre Dame. We see it now on one of our monitors at the bottom side of the screen. That is the ambulance making its way slowly, very, very slowly, along the north side of the island. But again, for those people just joining us, Panis appeared to be, or definitely was conscious when he was removed from the race car, moving his head, waving his arms. But he was placed on the side of the track, and the medical team, headed by Professor Sid Watkins, tending to him before he is removed to hospital here in Montreal. Michael Schumacher with a victory here this afternoon, not the kind he would have liked. He would like to, A, have beaten Jacques Villeneuve, both men to the finish line, and of course, B, and perhaps in fact it is of far greater importance, he no way wants to win a race that has been stopped because of an injury to another driver.
No, I'm sure that's going to be certainly on his mind. He will be absolutely thrilled to have won the race. So it's championship lead goes now to Michael Schumacher on 37 points. Villeneuve retains second in the championship on 15. Olivier Pan, and we're going to John Watson now.
Ron Dennis, David Coulthard and McLaren were dominating this race, then suddenly that stopped, everything went wrong. What was it?
Well, we had a clutch problem. It wasn't anything that we'd had an indication of in the race. We were looking at all the data, it was clear. We didn't need to stop, which is a bit frustrating. We were on a well-executed one-stop strategy, but Michael's tyres were absolutely gone. We had some blisters. It was just a precautionary stop. We had such a lead on Alesi that we just thought, you know, bearing in mind what happened to Mansell back in Adelaide a few years ago when it cost him the World Championship, it was just sensible to stop, take on clean tyres and cruise home. And the clutch caught us out. It was obviously a fierce debate on the pit wall, the right thing to do. I took the decision, and
all right,
you know, I don't regret it because nothing's more important than safety.
Okay, Ron, what did you and Goodyear know about this circuit that you could do a one-stop Grand Prix, because nobody else could even get a sniff of that?
We never had a wear problem throughout the weekend, and it was just a sort of blistering problem coming from the heat build-up, and we'd pretty much got a handle on it this morning, and there was no reason why we couldn't do a one-stop strategy. And why we should have such good performance from our first set of tyres and then immediately get into trouble on the second set. Who knows? But this is motor racing, and what I think trying to take some positive out of it is, irrespective of our strategy, the car engine performance was exceptional, and we didn't win here, but we should be able to win some later in the year.
Okay, Ron, many thanks. And that new Mercedes-Benz engine, both cars ran at clearly outstanding performance from the German company. Brian.
All right, thank you, John. John is going to move down to the Alain Prost pits. There is the Rothmans Williams car. That is Jacques Villeneuve's car. It crashed just before Villeneuve completed his second lap this afternoon. To bring you up to date, if you're just joining us at just after 2:30 Eastern Time, this race has been stopped. Michael Schumacher declared the winner. Jean Alesi will finish second, and Giancarlo Fisichella will be the other driver on the podium, the young Italian driving for Eddie Jordan. It's a very quiet and a very subdued crowd here today. Villeneuve going out before completing his second lap. The mark of a great driver is honesty, and Jacques Villeneuve was certainly honest in the interview. Jonathan Palmer with John Watson when he said, look, I simply made a mistake, and that's Frenson's car, Heinz-Harald Frenson, his teammate, who will finish fourth here today. So no Williams drivers on the podium, but a bitterly disappointing day for the record crowd and for Villeneuve because of a mistake. He hit the wall just coming into the start-finish area to complete his second lap. But of far greater importance, the accident involving Olivier Panis, the 30-year-old driver for Alain Prost, and we will show you exactly what happened driving in his 56th Formula One race. Dr. Jonathan Palmer, take us through it.
So there, that Ligier Prost car suddenly snaps sideways at 250 kilometers per hour, 155, ricochets off the right-hand wall. Look at it thump into the tires, coming to a halt in probably another 5 meters. A lot of G-force there, but also a lot of impact. The tires are being flung around, and those tires are big, they're heavy, and let's just pray that they didn't impact upon Olivier's head. We saw him conscious as he got out of the car. It certainly looked very much that way. There is the car being brought back, and the right rear, well, that may well have got damaged on the wall on the right-hand side. But, you know, if this is a function of the tyre situation we've got, and we know there's his teammate Nakano, and we've seen these blisters, as Ron Dennis said, they seem to be much more prevalent in the later stages of the race, the second and third sets of tyres. Is it because the track's got a little bit warmer? That's something we could wonder. But, you know, fundamentally, it's a function of the tyre war that we've got now with Bridgestone coming in. We've never had tyre problems like this in Montreal, not for a long time, and it's come about because we've got the tyre wall, we've got Bridgestone coming in. It's through no fault of Bridgestone. Let me make that absolutely clear. They've got every right to be in here in Formula One, proving that it's them who can make the better tyres, and Goodyear are going to try and do the same from their quarter. But this just shows you that tyres cannot be taken for granted. They are crucial elements, they're crucial to performance, they're crucial to safety.
Safety very much the story here this afternoon. 30-year-old Olivier Panis on his way to hospital, competing in his 56th Formula One race. He won at Monaco in 1996. On the left of your screen, Jean Alesi, second today for Benetton. On the right in the yellow suit is Giancarlo Fisichella, third, and the winner is Michael Schumacher. Subdued Michael Schumacher and a very subdued crowd here in Montreal. This race, scheduled for 69 laps, stopped, and Schumacher declared the winner. there's no question the major story here this afternoon, the accident involving Olivier Panis. John Watson, bring us up to date.
Yeah, I'm with Cesare Fiorio, the sporting director of Prost Grand Prix. Cesare, what do you know about Olivier's condition?
Well, unfortunately, we have no information so far. He is in the medical center, and Alain Prost just went there. I am with the radio with him, but he hasn't got any information so far.
Now, the accident happened very quickly. There was no obvious signs for why. Anything that you've been able to find from Olivier?
No, I called him in the radio immediately, but there was no answer, and we couldn't see anything on the TV or on the telemetry. So we must examine the car and speak with him.
Okay, Cesare, many thanks.
Thank you, John Watson. There is Giancarlo Fisichella on the right. He's third. And finishing second, man that won this race in 1995 for Ferrari, Jean Alesi. You see him on the right of your screen. And the winner, of course, today, Michael Schumacher and Ferrari. Here's the trophy. And Schumacher, Quebec Premier Lucien Bouchard, David Letterman in the T-shirt with the khaki pants on the right of your screen, assisting in the presentations here this afternoon. But subdued presentations. Schumacher takes the driver's lead as Villeneuve didn't finish 2 laps. The crowd, Jonathan, almost in a stunned frame of mind, and it started early when Villeneuve went out, and of course it continued and escalated the silence with the accident involving Panis. And we should point out there are giant video screens all around this circuit, so pretty well all the spectators could see what happened.
Well, it's been an amazingly eventful Grand Prix here at Montreal, more so than I can remember for a very long time. We've had that storming pole position from Michael Schumacher, that storming start from Schumacher, and then we had at the very first corner Eddie Irvine out, Mika Hakkinen out in the McLaren, and then we had, of course, Panis involved in that shunt too. By the end of the second lap, Villeneuve had this extraordinary error, but of course he was so frank about. We had Rubens Barrichello, the star, qualifying in 3rd place, going backwards faster than you could see. We then had Ralf Schumacher in another spectacular accident when a tyre exploded. We had David Coulthard then coming into the lead when we realised he was on a 1-stop strategy and virtually everybody else was on 2 stops. And then the whole thing coming to such a terrible end with that dreadful accident from Olivier Panis. And of course we all pray that his injuries are as minor as possibly can be. But Michael Schumacher at the end of it all, that's the Eddie Irvine Ferrari coming back. Michael Schumacher at the end of it all has won yet again. He got it all right. He looked like he was going to get challenged by Coulthard, but as Ron Dennis was obviously bitterly disappointed, and entirely understandably so. He didn't need to stop, of course. The irony was, as Dennis was saying, that with the blisters that Coulthard had, he could have gone through to the end of the race, but sensibly he took the safe option. But the clutch problem, I wonder actually if in the first stop we thought he was about to stall. I wonder if the clutch problem was actually manifesting itself a bit there then.
We'd like to alert the viewers we will stay on the air here in Montreal. What happens in Formula One, Jonathan, unlike IndyCar racing, we had Greg Moore with us earlier, we're allowed to interview the drivers in their cars immediately after the race. That is not the case in Formula One. What they do is they take the top 3 finishers, those drivers on the podium, and they take them up for a pool. It's called a pool worldwide interview, and we will broadcast that for you. It should start in about 90 seconds from now. We will also hopefully replay a
Michael,
Jacques Villeneuve interview, but right now, here is the pool interview.
You must be very pleased with your second victory of the season.
Obviously pleased for the 10 points, but it's no point to celebrate this victory. It's a circumstance which I don't like to win races at. That's about it.
Going back to the race, your 3rd pit stop, what happened there?
I went out after the 2nd pit stop. I took it fairly easy on the tyres, but obviously I wanted to not lose too much ground to Coulthard and catch him at the end. I immediately picked up a blister on the tyre, so I had to come in again, take on new tyres, and then we all know what happened.
Did you think you would have been able to catch up with David towards the end of the race? Was that likely?
I mean, we both had the same problem. It would have been the case or matter who took mostly care of his tyres towards the end, may then attack. It depends very much, because this last set of tyre, I don't know whether this would have lasted to the end. The same probably for David.
Thank you, Michael. Jean, a second good result for you. You were 3rd in Spain and 2nd today, so again you must be pleased even though it's difficult circumstances.
Of course, but I completely follow what Michael said. We all a little bit, a lot sad of what happened in on Panis, and we hope he will be well and back in the car very soon. Of course, for the teams, it's always good to bring 6 points, and it's what it happened today, so that is okay.
Looking forward to the next Grand Prix, do you think there's a victory at home is possible for you?
We did a very good testing last week, and we are going there directly after the race. So probably our car will be very competitive, but to say I'm in a position to win, you cannot say that, of course. But we will be very competitive for sure.
Thank you, Jean. Giancarlo, your first appearance on the podium, a great result for you.
Yeah, big results, and this was my target for this season, so it's incredible for me. I'm very happy, but I'm not very happy for Panis accident.
Going back to the race, did you have any problems with tyres yourself?
With my second set of tyres, yes, some problem with the front right tyres, some blister, but everything okay.
Well done, Giancarlo.
Thanks.
Michael, now some comment on the race in your own language.
Stay with us. Stay with us. Live coverage of the 1997 Grand Prix, Players Grand Prix of Canada, will continue from Montreal right after this. Back live in Montreal with Dr. Jonathan Palmer and John Watson. I'm Brian Williams. Michael Schumacher has won the 1997 Players Grand Prix of Canada. The race stopped. The computer is showing lap 55. It's either 54, 55, or 56. Stopped when Olivier Panis, driving for Alain Prost, had a rather hard collision with the wall, actually hit the cement wall, then came across into the safety tires on the north side of Ile Notre Dame. And so the race was stopped. Jacques Villeneuve, and we will hear from Jacques Villeneuve before we go off the air this afternoon. Replay an interview done earlier by John Watson. Villeneuve did not complete 2 laps here this afternoon. As he was about to complete his second lap, he smacked the wall. He said it was his own fault, and as a result, Michael Schumacher has the driver's lead, and Ferrari has now taken a big lead in the constructors' race. Eddie Irvine did not finish here this afternoon. Frentzen finishes in 4th place, the other Williams driver, Jacques Villeneuve's teammate. But the story here in Montreal this afternoon, and you saw a very subdued Michael Schumacher, Jean Alesi, and Giancarlo Fisichella. As I said earlier to Dr. Jonathan Palmer, you like to win, but certainly not under these conditions.